Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to We Believe Digital News Break, Tuesday afternoon, and we're here to share all kinds of things going on, especially here in Jackson with this water crisis. We hope that you had a good Labor Day weekend in spite of all the adversity going on up in our city right now, and that you had a chance to spend time with loved ones and do some reflection. We're broadcasting here from Jackson, the heart of the Deep South, in these We Believe Digital Studios. A wonderful little gem of media production here in essentially Midtown, downtown Jackson. And we always welcome hearing from you. Our call-in number is 1-800-492-5186. We have amazing capacity here for your advertising needs and your own show. We want to hear your voice, and for your products and services, your concepts, your ideas. A full-fledged studio available to you here. Again, you can always call in at 1-800-492-5186. We'll be happy to answer any questions. If you're considering doing some advertising, we just updated our brochure that's got all the key components of our offerings here at the studio. Give us a call and let us know where you're at and your address. We'll be happy to mail one out to you. So that's what's going on here at We Believe Digital. We're here for you and open for business. Really looking forward to your support and utilizing this studio to its fullest potential. Again, my name is Chris Young, and my co-host. Good afternoon, Mr. Socrates Garrett. How are you, sir?
I'm well. It's good to be in the studio with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're here because your perspective, you can't quantify your perspective, having been doing business here in Jackson for 40 plus years. Know what goes on here like the back of your hand. Somebody comes to you with breaking news, and you don't get typically excited about it because you've been around the track so many times with things, but you know the right things to focus on. So it's a delight that you're here. You know, this water situation, there's so many different ways to share with our viewers. I did a lot of riding over the weekend, was over at New Horizon Church. We got a two-pronged issue, right? Let's get the water to the taps, and let's get people plenty of water in the interim, because even though we've got pressure back now, as of Sunday, there's still some questions about the quality of the water. So two-pronged monster that we're kind of dealing with here. But God, that operation out at New Horizon, phenomenal, moving millions of bottles of water out there. Metro Center Mall, I spent 30 minutes yesterday talking to the on-scene a person in charge there, a warrant officer that's been in the Guard now for 41 years, honcho in that operation out at Metro Center Mall, 2 lanes of cars coming in there. Same thing out at the Willis Smith, the Hank Aaron Stadium. Lot of people moving through there, so not even sure where to begin.
Well, Chris, you're talking about Chief Warrant Officer Miller. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, I spent some time with him as well. Mm-hmm. I'd like to begin, Chris, updating our viewers on how we got here, when we got here, mm-hmm. etc., and give them just a little background information. People all over the world are wondering what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. We get calls daily as to what in the world is happening to Jackson, Mississippi. Why is it that you are without water? 150,000 citizens that are without water. It's almost embarrassing and it's devastating, and there are reasons for things. And so I'd like to just stop, Chris, if I may, and give a little backdrop. You know, Jackson water system is comprised of two main water plants. One is the O.B. Curtis water plant, which is located out in Richland. And it was built some 30 years ago, and it is a very complex system with a hybrid. It's got half of it is under the membrane system and half is under the conventional system. The very first plant, old plant, was fuel drinking water plant, and it's located right there. If you ever come through Jackson, Mississippi, we call it the Waterworks Curve. And it's a tremendous area to navigate, and we have a lot of accidents in that part of that interstate, thereby the water plant, the JH Fuel water plant. Well, 2 years ago, and I'll go back even further than that, our distribution system is over 150 years old. And so Jackson has been trying to upgrade its distribution system, because even though it produced tremendous amounts of water, only 40 to 50% of the water actually gets to the households, because we lose it in an aged distribution system. Some of our pipes are still clay pipes. We go back that far. A lot of our 2-inch water lines would have to be upgraded to a minimum of 4-inch lines to tie into our fire protection system. And so for the last 30 years or so, we have watched this water distribution system continue to deteriorate. A lot of things go on with water in small town America, and Jackson facing a inability to balance its budget because of a loss of revenue. And we lost revenue because we had a tremendous migration by Europeans and African Americans outside of the city of Jackson, and therefore our property tax diminished. And when you lose your rooftops, you lose your ability to maintain an infrastructure that was designed for 250,000 people, and now you only have 150,000, but the lines continue to function. So, you know, Jackson has been struggling and trying to figure out how to upgrade this system for the past year and a half to 2 years, and quite frankly longer. I recall Mayor Harvey Johnson said he had spent $50 million in the water system trying to improve it. Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba's spent millions of dollars trying to improve the water system. And during our last bad weather event 2 years ago, the entire system shut down and our lines froze and we lost water pressure. Now, we are on a hybrid system. Part of our city gets water from the O.B. Curtis and fuel water treatment plants. The other part of our city on the well system. And you know, municipalities are mandated to move away from wells and groundwater surfaces. So that's kind of how we got here. And as Chris said, it's tremendous outpouring of assistance from others all across the world that have come to Jackson's rescue. We couldn't be more proud of America and Americans that have delivered water by the truckload, the caseload, the pickup load, and all kinds of citizens have come to our aid. And we appreciate that here in Jackson, Mississippi. So, Chris, I just wanted to give a little backdrop on that. And from there, you were telling us where we are today in the distribution system.
Yeah, and really the word came out on Sunday, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that the pressure had been restored, and there was water going to taps, and so that was heartening news from the city. And then on yesterday, on Labor Day, the mayor had one of his press conferences, and you know, I don't. It's tough to, you know, he lambasted this city in the middle of all this.
You mean the governor?
The governor.
Yeah, okay.
In the middle of all this going on Labor Day. At 11 o'clock on yesterday morning, I watched the whole press conference, just lambasted the city over its operations, or the city government operations in general, and particularly the water operation. Just laid in on at seemingly every opportunity. I can't for the life of me understand what the benefit of that blame, that blame game is in the middle of a crisis. How you can do that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. In Mississippi, as a state, we are tremendously divided. The nation is divided, but in Mississippi, with our history of racism and all of the things that we've gone through here as African Americans, you would hope that we would be at a point where we could all come together and work together, especially during crisis situations. And the press conference was a little bit disheartening. It was disheartening, number one, in that the mayor of the great city of Jackson was absent.
Yeah. Right.
He was nowhere found on the stage.
Chances are not invited.
I'm certain if he were invited, he would have attended.
Yes, sir.
Yes, there were many people who Chris, when you're down, people tend to pile on, and more of your enemies and your adversaries tend to take advantage of the moment when you're down to kick you and to say that you are responsible, you have not fulfilled the responsibilities of your position. When no one prior to him fulfilled the responsibilities of their position, that's how we got in this particular situation.
Right. Yeah, and the governor took full credit, for getting the water pressure restored, and there is going to be testing starting soon. Apparently, the pressure is fluctuating. They've put more pressure in the pipes, according to the mayor, than they've had in those pipes in some time now. So that is a issue of concern that that might lead to more, as you were talking about the pipes earlier and the aging pipes, by pressurizing them even more, that could lead to problems. But we have pressure now, and the testing will, if it hasn't already started, will be starting very, very soon. And you know much more than I do about I know two sets of positive tests need to happen, but that needs to happen at around 120 different points throughout the city. They have to test for various chemicals and alkalinity and different stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yes, EPA mandates that you have 2 positive tests of all of your test points, some 120 test points around the city, before they will lift the boil water notice. Now, Jacksonians have water now. The immediate need was to get the pressure up so that citizens could flush their commodes, they could do things of that nature. And so now that we have that, now the next step is to try and get the boil water notice lifted because of 2 consecutive tests that test positive, that our system is now clear to go. We're making progress in that arena. Tremendous operation with engineers from all around the surrounding cities. The mayor, Sylvester Turner, over in Houston, Texas, sent over truckloads of water and said that Jacksonians was there for him during their time, and he was proud to send water over here. And so we have that kind of activity all across the world. Chris, I want you to share, because of the generosity of Americans and because of the outpouring of support for Jackson's, I think the swift action on our president's part needs to be talked about.
It's the saving grace, and it really is featured in an article that I've just finished pulling together. Will be published in the Mississippi Link late tomorrow night. The print version will be out on Thursday morning. But I think a front page story about, as you said, so many people coming to bear now, and so much of that has to do I think it's our saving grace, this intervention by the president. I mean, the Mayor Jackson, with everything that we go through, to receive a direct call from the president and to let them know, and quickly followed up by another separate call from the vice president to let the mayor know that we're going to find a way to, not only for the immediate crisis that you have going on, we're bringing all resources to bear to help you with that, but also the next steps further on, and working with the EPA and other agencies to once and for all take care of this problem. I mean, imagine, it's sad to think, you don't want to imagine it for a minute, but without this intervention from the federal level, everybody would still be crossing paths with one another.
Yeah, clearly there has not been a good relationship between the city of Jackson and the state of Mississippi. And
Mr. Garrett, shocked as you will be, because I believe you told me you're definitely a personal acquaintance of our lieutenant governor, Delbert Hosemann, who sometimes, I'm still a newcomer here, 18 months in the city, and sometimes I've looked at him like the only adult in the room. But boy, he was talking to Byron Brown over the weekend on the Mississippi. Well, actually, it was that segment had been recorded a few days earlier, but and Byron Brown was asking him on the Mississippi Insights program about the rift between the city of use that word, between the city of Jackson and the state. And boy, I expected to hear a lot different. He said things like how saddened he is to wake up in the morning and see the national news coverage of what's going on, and how our city, how our state is being portrayed to people. He said he likes to think of Mississippi as a big neighborhood, and Mr. Garrett, that's not the impression I have at all. I mean, Mississippi is last in everything. You've got elected officials tied directly to the governor's mansion stealing welfare money, and the lieutenant governor is saddened by the national media coverage?
Yeah, I don't know. Delbert Hosemann is an individual that I've known for quite some time. And I had high hopes for Delbert, that he would be a shining light in the midst of darkness, that he would ascend to the position where he could really make change in Mississippi. Yeah. And so I trust that he will find a way to do that. But he first has to acknowledge fully that there is a problem.
Yes.
It was a problem before he got here, and it continues to be a problem. We're not one big neighborhood. African American business receive less than 2% of contracts for goods and services from the state of Mississippi, while we are 40% of the population. And so we're not one big neighborhood. The city of Jackson does not receive the support that other municipalities around the states receive. The governor vetoed the money for Jackson, said that he didn't want to put money in areas where they had mismanaged funds. And Chris, as you had said earlier, then why would the state receive money since they've mismanaged so much funds? And currently with the MDHS scandal,
right,
over $100 million of TANF money missing.
Right.
That's a mishandling of funds, but yet we trust that our governor will be able to govern the state and treat the municipalities fairly.
Not going to happen.
It just has not happened, but it has to happen at some point in time, because we cannot sustain as a country nor as a nation this polarization and this racism that is all around us. We got to get a breakthrough there somehow, Chris, if we're going to move forward.
And too, our congressional delegation, 4 out of 6 of our representatives, out of our 2 senators and 4 congressmen, 4 out of 6 voted down the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. 4 out of 6. If Benny Thompson, to his credit, obviously voted for it, and lo and behold, Roger Wicker voted for it. So, you got to give credit where credit's due. And Mr. Garrett, if you hadn't heard, I'm sure you know already that the O.B. Curtis plant is in whose district? Representative Michael Guest.
Wow.
Have you seen him on the streets down here this weekend?
No,
I never did see him. Never did see him.
Chris, we're getting ready to go to a commercial break. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi at the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. We're being seen all over the world. We're on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, on WeBelieveDigital.com, and on Roku TV. I want you to go to our website, WeBelieveDigital.com, hit the donate button, and on Facebook, let's share this program so that others might enjoy receiving a different version of the story that's permeating America today concerning the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. We'll be right back after this commercial.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason, written by Sherry Tate, illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his 5 senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
Advertise on WeBelieve.Global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.Global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
And welcome back to We Believe Digital News Break. Again, we're glad you're joining us. I wanted to share with the viewers that we have the mayor had an update press conference down at City Hall just 30 minutes before we were coming on the air with this show, and so I heard parts of it, but you can always go to the Jackson City Government webpage and view that all the updates, or through other broadcast stations. I'm sure will at least give parts of what the mayor shared. One thing he did point out was, and he had the documents in his hand because everybody's saying, Mr. Garrett, where's the plan? Where's the plan? And Benny Thompson, we can't find any bigger supporter than Benny Thompson, has said, show me a verifiable plan, and I can assure you it will be well received in Washington. And so I think in response to that, the mayor was highlighting today a series of documents that has been already shared with our delegation, and even a letter that he wrote to the governor last March after that freeze, specifically highlighting exactly where the needs were and how much the estimated costs were. So hopefully we can start to get some traction on that with our representatives.
Yeah, and the city has to come up with a comprehensive plan. We are under consent decree on our wastewater. Mm-hmm. And so I know we've hired project managers and program managers to come up with plans, and they're very reputable. And so coming up with a plan is not a difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. We have Jackson State University here, we have Belhaven, we have Mississippi College, we have Millsaps here. Mm-hmm. We have all of our premier institutions right here in Jackson, Mississippi that would help put together a comprehensive plan.
Right.
We also have, as the mayor was talking about, water alliance groups and other professional public works association groups that would help put together a plan. So coming up with a plan is not the difficult thing to do. Coming up with a fundable plan prior to this event was the difficult thing to do. And when you were not receiving any funds, then you didn't have a fundable plan,
right?
One that you could put into action to correct the deficit.
Well, the governor, he keeps touting, matching funds, but we have a depleted tax base here, and how do you muster up enough to get where
it's the old days of the adage of what goes on during slavery and every time up to today. Poor people don't have matching funds.
Right.
Poor cities, you could say, I'm going to give you $100 million if you just match it with $100 million. Yeah. Well, that's just like saying I'm not going to give you anything.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When you are poor, you are up against eating the seed corn every year. You're up against eating the seed corn. And for those of you out there that don't know anything about farming, you can't eat the seed corn because there will be nothing to plant with for the following year, and you'll starve to death. So you have to put some back, and you never touch your seed corn. Well, Jackson, Mississippi was up against that point. It just didn't have the money to take on this massive undertaking of $1.2 to $2 billion to correct the issue with the water plant, both the water plant, the wastewater plant, the distribution system, the transmission lines. All of that's part of the system. And Chris, that just gets you up to the point where clean water is being brought by the neighbor's house. When you tap into the water line, the old laterals that come off of the new water lines are still old. They still have potential to have lead in them. They still could be clay pipes. They will burst and break every time you have a hard freeze. And when the laterals break, you lose your pressure again.
And the laterals are the responsibility of
the citizens themselves.
Of the homeowners.
And no one, including our president, including our congressman, including our governor, nor have I heard our mayor say anything about how are we going to provide assistance to these citizens to change out these old laterals that are connecting to supposedly a brand new distribution system.
Right.
It's a very complex problem. You can come up with a plan, but if you can't fund it, then, it just sits on the shelf. And to that end, let me say this to America. And to say this specifically to Mississippians and Mississippi leadership. We've had a flooding problem in Mississippi since 1979, a tremendous flood. We have fought every day for 40 years to develop a plan to solve the issue of flooding in Jackson, Mississippi. And one of the things that happened to us just last month is that we had a perfect storm. We had a plant that was suffering, and then we had a tremendous flood that made us lose our raw water intake pumps into the system. We have not been able to come up with a plan that was doable and even didn't require the money is not the issue, just getting our citizens to vote to fix flooding conditions in Jackson, Mississippi. So nobody in Mississippi ought to slander this mayor or these public works departments because in Mississippi we are derelict and negligent in so many ways. There's so much divisiveness and hatred here until we refuse to sit down together and solve a common problem.
So once again, the federal government is going to be the saving grace.
Hopefully so, if our governor just agrees to accept the money.
Well, he accepts other money. Do you know, Mr. Garrett, we've been over this before, of the income pool, the annual income pool that the state of Mississippi sees, 43% of that is directly from the federal government. This state would be bankrupt were it not for the federal government. And so I trust that President Biden's going to follow through on this. He's going to make it happen.
Well, I think he has already said it's available.
Yeah.
The president said, I've given you everything we have to offer.
Right.
The Corps of Engineers,
right.
the EPA, FEMA, the director of FEMA's in town. He's given you everything that they have to offer, low interest loans for people that were affected. The announcement was just made that even you don't have to file your tax returns until 2023 because if you're tied down in this flood zone. So the federal government has given, as it should, what it has. Disproportionately, African Americans are affected in disasters. We go back to Katrina when it hit the 9th Ward down there. It was just devastating on African Americans. In Jackson, our city is 85% black. It's devastated. And so we now are asking for assistance from the federal government, but we're not absolutely certain that our state government will even accept the money.
No.
They did not accept the Medicaid expansion, Chris.
Right.
And so I'm wondering and waiting to see.
Yeah. No earned income tax credit, no postpartum extension.
None of that.
No.
And so we got a situation here. I'm asking our governor to accept the generosity of our President of the United States, and let's move Jackson, Mississippi forward. Let's repair and rebuild this city. Let's acknowledge the support. Nowhere during the press conferences that I've seen to date have our governor acknowledged President Biden and his generosity. Nowhere have I seen him acknowledge our mayor of Jackson and the tremendous struggle that he has in front of him and the appreciation for what he has been dealing with. And until we come together as a family and we come together as one people, we're not going to be able to solve these problems, Chris.
And just lastly, Mr. Garrett, I guess you could certainly call it a high note because I believe it's just one school that is not in operation today for in-person learning. And that means so much to people, and there's a lot that goes on beneath the surface that people don't understand when you have to do remote learning with our young, as we call our young scholars here, so that these schools back open the day after Labor Day for in-person learning. All except one school citywide is just a huge positive step that we're grateful for. And we thank you for tuning in today and watching our Newsbreak show, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. Make it the best day you can out there and stay safe.
Cameras off.